Welcome to this lecture where we'll talk about the style attribute and how it can be used to control the visual appearance of pretty much any HTML tag within your web page. In the last few lectures we've seen how HTML is made up of tags and attributes, where tags are used to group and describe sections of content and their attributes used to provide further information for the browser. The style attribute is no different, except in this case it's used specifically to provide information about how the content within the tag should be displayed. Originally, HTML supported a range of different tags and attributes that controlled the displaying of content, from font sizes to background colors. However, as HTML evolved, the style attribute was introduced to handle them all in one place. This made many of the old attributes redundant in HTML5. Within this single attribute, it's now possible to format any HTML tag with almost an endless array of options. Because this attribute applies to most HTML tags, we're discussing it here so that we can reference it in lectures that follow. Let's look at an example of where the style attribute can be used. As mentioned before, it can be added to almost any HTML tag, but in this example, we'll apply it to the body tag. First of all, we need to add our new attribute. You can see Visual Studio Code providing IntelliSense to help me as I type. When entering this attribute, it should always be formatted like this, with the attribute name followed by an equals character, followed by two double quotes. The value of our attribute will be placed between these double quotes. For this example, we're going to change the background color and text color of our web page. To do this, we need to provide more information which the web browser will read and apply when the web page is displayed. Unlike other attributes, which typically accept a single value, the style attribute can accept many values in the form of a list where each item is separated by a semicolon. We will examine this further in just a moment, but to start with, let's set the background color of the web page. We can do this with the background color option, and in this case I'm going to select blue as the value. You can see that I've split this attribute value into two parts, the style name in this case being background color, and the style value being blue. But what if I want to now specify the text color as well? This can be done using a semicolon to separate things. If we enter one here, it will tell the browser that the text that follows is a separate style. Now that we have our separator, we can continue with the text color. This style is just called color, and I'm going to choose white as its value. Now that we've entered our style names and values, let's save our changes and see what this looks like in a browser. If you're using Visual Studio Code like I am, you can do this very quickly by selecting Run, and then Run Without Debugging option from the menu. If you're not using Visual Studio Code, you'll need to locate the HTML file in your filing system and open it up using a web browser. Either way though, the result should be the same. Once loaded in your web browser, you'll be able to see what your web page looks like. Nothing too exciting yet, but you should see the background is blue. To test this further, let's go and change the background color to something else. We'll close the browser and change the background color style to black. Now, let's save this and run it again in our browser. As you can see, this has changed the color of the background from blue to black. Now that we're familiar with background color, let's go back and look at how the text color works. We can't see this in action yet because it controls the color of any text within the document, and right now we have none. So let's enter some. For this, we can go to the body tag and enter some text between the starting tag and closing tag. As we discussed before, this is where the main content of our web page will be. For now, we'll just enter the text, "My first simple web page." If we save this and run it in our web browser, we can see that the background is still black and the color of the text is white. The browser is doing exactly as we instructed it to do via the HTML tags and attributes. Looking back at our HTML file, the way in which we provide instructions for the browser should be a bit clearer. We can see that the style attribute contains two different instructions. The first one to control the background color of the web page, and the second to control the text color. It's only a brief introduction at this stage, but hopefully this lecture has given you some insight on how the style attribute works. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands of different style options that you can apply to almost any HTML tag, some of which we'll come across as we progress through the following lectures. Please note that the technique discussed in this example is referred to as inline styles. This means the style names and values are included in line with the HTML code. I wanted to give you a quick introduction here, but as we delve deeper into style attributes, you'll start to hear terms such as CSS or cascading style sheets, which is the evolution of what we're discussing. For now, we'll just stick with inline styles, but later in the course we'll expand on this further. To highlight how HTML and CSS work together though, let's just take a quick look back at the code. The sections highlighted here in red are all written using HTML5, and the sections in blue in CSS3. The numbers 5 and 3 here just refer to the versions of the language, and therefore the different tags and values that they each support. HTML happens to be in its 5th version, and CSS in its 3rd. So, when you see these logos and you hear me talk about HTML5 or CSS3, then you know what I'm referring to. As mentioned earlier though, there are many other ways to integrate these two languages rather than using inline styles, but we'll discuss these in more depth in the CSS section of the course. So that's it for HTML fundamentals. Hopefully you'll now have a good understanding of what HTML is and why it's important when it comes to building websites. In the next section of the course we'll start looking at specific HTML tags and we'll explore exactly what they can do and how they do it.